You've been told your whole life that traveling is about seeing new places. But that's not what's really happening in your brain. What you're actually doing when you board that plane, pack that bag, cross that border, is something far more primal. And once you understand it, you'll never see yourself the same way again. There's a specific type of person who doesn't just enjoy travel, they need it. They feel restless in familiar places. They scroll through flight deals at midnight. They plan the next trip before the current one even ends. And if you're watching this, there's a good chance you're one of them. Most people think this is about adventure, or curiosity, or running away from something. But neuroscience tells a different story. Because the brain of someone who loves to travel isn't just seeking novelty, it's responding to a very specific psychological architecture that most people don't have. And it starts with a chemical most of us have heard of, but few truly understand. Let me take you inside a laboratory at Vanderbilt University in 2012. A team of neuroscientists led by David Zold made a discovery that would quietly rewrite how we understand human motivation. They found that people differ dramatically in how their brains produce and regulate dopamine, not by a little, by orders of magnitude. Some people have what they called a high dopamine tone. Their brains are constantly hungry for stimulation, for newness, for change. And when they don't get it, they don't just feel bored. They feel physically uncomfortable, like something is missing. Now here's what matters. Dopamine isn't the pleasure chemical. That's the myth. Dopamine is the anticipation chemical. It's released not when you arrive, but when you're about to discover something new, when you're on the edge of the unknown. And if you love travel, your brain is wired to crave that edge. Think about it. The moment you book a flight, dopamine spikes. When you research a new city, it spikes. When you step off a train in a place where you don't speak the language, where the signs are unfamiliar, where you have to navigate without certainty, your brain floods with it. You feel alive. But here's the paradox. After you've been somewhere, once it becomes familiar, that dopamine response fades. The same street that thrilled you on day 1 feels ordinary by day 7. And that's not a flaw in you. That's your brain doing exactly what it was designed to do. You're not restless because something is wrong with you. You're restless because your dopamine system is tuned differently than most people's. Now let's go deeper, because there's a second layer to this that almost no one talks about. In 1999, researchers at the University of California identified a gene called DRD47R. It's been nicknamed the wanderlust gene, though that's oversimplified. What it actually does is regulate dopamine receptors in the prefrontal cortex. People who carry this gene, and it's roughly 20% of the population, have a significantly higher tolerance for risk and a much stronger pull toward exploration. Anthropologists have traced this gene across human migration patterns, and here's what they found. Populations that migrated the farthest from Africa, across continents, over oceans, into the unknown, they have the highest concentration of DRD47R. It's not a coincidence. The people who left, who kept moving, who didn't settle, they carried this gene forward. If you love to travel, there's a real chance you're genetically descended from the ones who couldn't stay still, the ones who looked at the horizon and felt compelled to see what was beyond it. And that urge, that pull you feel when you're stuck in one place for too long, that's not modern wanderlust. That's ancient wiring, evolutionary momentum still running through your nervous system. But there's something else happening when you travel, something that goes beyond dopamine and genetics. It has to do with identity. Most people build their sense of self through repetition, through routine. They know who they are because they do the same things, see the same people, live inside the same context every single day. Their identity is stable because their environment is stable. But when you travel, all of that gets stripped away. You're not in your usual role. You're not the employee, the parent, the friend in the same predictable pattern. You're just a person moving through the world, anonymous, unburdened. And in that space, something extraordinary happens. Your brain gets to rebuild your sense of self from scratch. You get to ask, who am I when no one knows me? What do I actually like when I'm not performing for familiarity? Psychologists call this identity experimentation. And it's one of the most underrated reasons people become addicted to travel. Because for a brief window, you get to be the person you might have been if your life had gone differently. You get to try new versions of yourself without consequence. A study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology in 2013 found that people who traveled frequently scored significantly higher on openness to experience. But here's the twist. The researchers couldn't tell if travel made people more open or if open people were drawn to travel. It's likely both. A feedback loop. The more you travel, the more your brain rewires toward openness. And the more open you become, the more you crave the disorientation that travel provides. You're not escaping your life. You're expanding your identity. Now let's talk about something most people won't admit. There's a shadow side to this psychology. And if you've ever felt guilty about how much you think about leaving, this will make sense. Humans are tribal creatures. For most of our history, leaving the tribe meant death. Exile was the worst punishment. Staying close to familiar people, familiar places, that was survival. And even now, deep in your limbic system, your brain still equates belonging with safety. So when you feel the urge to leave, when you buy that plane ticket, when you tell people you're going somewhere far away again, there's often a quiet voice that whispers, "What's wrong with you? Why can't you just be happy here?" That voice isn't rational. It's ancient. It's your brain's threat detection system interpreting your desire to explore as a form of betrayal, as dangerous detachment. But here's what you need to understand. That voice is operating on outdated information. Because in the modern world, travel doesn't mean exile. It means expansion. You're not abandoning your tribe. You're building a bigger one. Research from Stanford in 2009 showed that people who traveled to multiple countries developed what they called cognitive flexibility, the ability to hold contradictory ideas at the same time, to see the world from perspectives that don't match their own, to adapt quickly to new social rules without losing their sense of self. In other words, travel doesn't make you less rooted, it makes you more dimensionally human. There's a concept in psychology called optimal arousal theory. It suggests that every person has a baseline level of stimulation they need to feel comfortable. Some people have a low threshold. They're happiest in predictable, quiet, stable environments. And some people have a high threshold. They need constant change, challenge, uncertainty, or they start to feel like they're disappearing. If you love travel, your optimal arousal level is high, maybe very high, and the modern world, with its routines and schedules and sameness, falls far below that threshold. So you compensate, you seek intensity elsewhere, you go to places that wake you up. But here's the part most people miss. This isn't a deficit. It's a design feature. In 2017, psychologist Scott Barry Kaufman published research on what he called psychological entropy, the idea that some people are wired to resist order, not because they're chaotic, but because their brains are optimized for environments that are fluid, unpredictable, information-rich. These are the people who get bored in meetings, who feel suffocated by long-term plans, who come alive in airports and border towns and places where they don't know what's going to happen next. And historically, these were the people societies needed. The scouts, the traders, the scouts, the explorers, the ones who brought back information from the edges of the known world. You're not broken for wanting to leave. You're wired for a role that modern stability has made invisible. Let me tell you what happens in your brain when you're in a completely foreign place, when you don't speak the language, when the food is unfamiliar, when you have to navigate by instinct instead of habit. Your hippocampus lights up. That's the part of your brain responsible for spatial memory and learning. But it doesn't just encode where you are. It encodes how you feel, what you notice, who you meet. Travel memories are some of the richest, most detailed memories your brain ever creates. Because your brain knows, this is important, this is new, pay attention. But there's more. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that handles executive function and self-control, has to work harder. Because you can't rely on autopilot. Every decision requires conscious thought, and that sustained cognitive effort over days or weeks actually strengthens neural connections. A study from the University of Pittsburgh in 2014 found that older adults who traveled regularly had significantly lower rates of cognitive decline. Their brains stayed sharper, more flexible, more resilient. Travel doesn't just make you feel alive, it keeps your brain structurally younger. And then there's meaning, because at the end of the day, this might be the deepest reason you travel. Human beings are meaning-making machines. We need to feel like our lives are going somewhere, like we're accumulating something beyond just comfort or routine. And for a lot of people, the traditional markers of meaning, career advancement, home ownership, accumulating possessions, they don't land the same way they used to. But experiences, those land deeply when you travel. You're not buying things, you're building a story. And that story becomes part of your identity. It's how you understand yourself. It's what you return to when someone asks, "Who are you?" Psychologists call this narrative identity. The idea that we are, fundamentally, the stories we tell about ourselves. And if your story is rich with movement, with encounters, with places and people and moments that changed you, you feel like a more complete human being. A 2016 study from Cornell University found that people derive more lasting happiness from experiences than from material goods. Not just because experiences are enjoyable in the moment, but because they become part of who we are. They integrate into our sense of self in a way that objects never do. When you come home from a trip, you're not the same person who left, and you know it, and that transformation, however small, is addictive. So let's bring this all together, because if you've made it this far, you've probably recognized yourself in almost everything I've said. You love travel because your brain is wired for novelty, because you carry genetic echoes of people who couldn't stay still, because your dopamine system craves the edge of the unknown, because your identity is fluid, experimental, built through exposure rather than repetition. You're not running away. You're running toward a version of yourself that only exists in motion. And here's the truth that nobody tells you. The people who love stability, who feel most alive in routine, who never understand why you keep leaving, they're not better than you. And you're not better than them. You're just optimized for different environments. But this world, the way it's currently structured, rewards their wiring. It builds cities and careers and lifestyles around predictability, around staying put. And that makes you feel like the outlier, like something is wrong with you for wanting more. But nothing is wrong with you. You're just wired for a wider world. So the next time you feel that pull, that restlessness, that quiet voice that says it's time to go, don't shame it. Don't explain it away. Don't apologize for it. Listen to it. Because it's not a flaw. It's a signal. Your brain telling you exactly what it needs to stay sharp, stay open, stay alive. You're not lost. You're just in motion. And that's exactly where you're supposed to be. If this made you see yourself differently, there's something else you need to understand. Something about the psychology of people who can't stop thinking. The ones whose minds never quiet down, whose thoughts spiral into places most people never go. That's next. And once you see it, a lot of things will finally make sense.